Hey everybody, I hope you're all doing well this weekend. We just wrapped up another week here in Washington, so I want to give you a quick update on the work that did get done. Now first, Congress passed a bill to decriminalize marijuana. Now when I say Congress, I mean the House of Representatives at the federal level. They passed a bill to decriminalize marijuana at the federal level. Now what that means is if it also passes in the Senate, that marijuana would no longer be considered illegal by the federal government, and it would be taken off the list of drugs that the FDA considers to have, quote, no medicinal value or be highly addictive. And here's why this is important. Now currently, the legality of marijuana in our country, it varies from state to state. You add in the fact that the federal government considers it to be illegal, and it starts to get confusing very, very quickly. It affects a host of issues as to whether a property management company can lease property to a place that has some sort of marijuana or dispensary business, or whether those dollars can be used in the banking business, whether they can go into a normal account, and a host of other issues. It becomes very confusing very quickly. Now, by decriminalizing marijuana at the federal level, we are effectively taking the federal government out of the equation, clearing the way for states to make their own decisions. States' rights, it's a novel concept. I know it's one of the greatest founding principles that we have here in the United States of America. Our government works best when we allow the states to determine which laws work best for their communities. And that's why I voted in favor of this legislation, is to go and give that right to make those decisions back to the states. Now, another piece of legislation that's also related to states' rights is about this. Maybe you saw the Netflix series Tiger King. I haven't seen it. Most of my staff has seen it. They've told me a little bit about it. I haven't been able to watch it. But this bill that I'm going to talk about right now, it's about just that. But it's also an issue of states' rights. Now, this bill is called the Big Cat Public Safety Act, and it would make it illegal to breed or own species of big cats, including lions, tigers, leopards, jaguars, cougars, or any of the hybrids of those species. Now, big cat ownership is already illegal in the state of Florida in many cases, and just because the federal government can pass a law at the federal level here in Washington, D.C., that doesn't mean that we should. It doesn't mean that it takes that opportunity or that right away from the states to go out there and manage themselves. Now, I've fought hard to protect animals on a host of different fronts during my time here in Congress, but the last thing that we need is the federal government to create regulation in the form of laws that are already on the books in states across the country. This bill, it's unnecessary, which is why ultimately I voted no on this one, because it takes rights away from the states. Now, we all know that a city, a county, a state, they can make their own zoning permits, their own areas, their own laws about what can be done on an individual's land. And we know that quite often states and counties and municipalities and cities, that they do quite often make laws about what we can go out there and do on our private property and what we can have on there. We don't need the federal government also doing that. So the bottom line is this. I strongly believe that both of these bills, they deal with state issues, and that the federal government doesn't have business regulating those issues in those ways. Now, our founders created a system that empowers all 50 states to go out there and make their own decisions, and I will continue doing my part to make sure that we protect that right. Now, I also want to give you an update on what's going on with Lake Okeechobee right now. There's some very frustrating things going on. There's progress, but there's frustrating progress. We all know the work that we go out there and try to do to get the Army Corps to stop discharges to the St. Lucie. The Army Corps of Engineers has just announced a 5-day pause on discharges that they've been doing for the last, for the last month or however long it is that they've been doing it. I don't know the exact date, probably a little bit longer than that. Followed by, but after they stop those discharges, they're going to, or presuming that they will resume them at a reduced rate of 1,500 cubic feet per second after that period. In other words, they still plan to dump 969 million gallons per day into our estuary after that pause. So I talked this week with Colonel Kelly, who runs the Army Corps of Engineers in Florida, and the truth is this is simply unnecessary. It's doing very real damage to our estuary. The Corps of Engineers knows that they're damaging our estuary. They know that when there's algal blooms in the waters that they discharge, that they're literally poisoning our community and poisoning our estuary, and that's why we fight for this operational change to stop this literal abuse, literal poisoning, and destruction of our waterways and our community, and I'm not going to stop until we succeed at that. To that end, the process to rewrite the lake discharge schedule. This is something that I wrote into law back in 2018, demanding that this be rewritten, is ongoing. And we just entered a new phase of that rewriting of that operational schedule. The Army Corps right now has produced more than 100,000 what they call model runs, which are basically different simulated schedules of when water would be moved to different places throughout the state out of Lake Okeechobee and coming in and going out in other places. They've narrowed these 100,000 runs to about 27,000 that the Army Corps thinks are the best possible ones. And now they're asking us to help them narrow those 27,000 down to approximately a dozen, what we consider to be the best dozen. That's part of a group that we've talked about previously that is paying attention to this whole process. You may remember that a number of months back we were talking about that the Agricultural Commissioner in Florida, Nikki Fried, had contracted U.S. sugar lobbyists to be on that advisory board that was looking at this operational schedule. That was a big fight that we had a number of months ago. That's the group that is taking a look at this. Now, the Corps of Engineers has set a deadline of December 12th, and here's why I think that is BS. It's not giving stakeholders nearly enough time to go out there and process the information of 27,000 possible runs and narrow that down to a dozen. Now, my team and I, we are working on this endlessly, trying to read through these, look at these, very technical in many cases, and want to see the Corps of Engineers hold meetings to talk about this. We need to talk about this with the South Florida Water Management District, with the Florida Department of Environmental Protection, with groups like Everglades Foundation and Autobahn, and our farmers in our area, and everybody that might be in industry that uses water in some kind of way, to go out there and parse through all of this data and accomplish our goal of preventing discharges to the St. Lucie, but making sure, as we always want to make sure, that there is enough water for everybody that uses it out there, but doing that responsibly so that those that are asking for water don't ask that they step on our community in order to have it, which is that's literally what the ask is right now in so many cases. Those saying, hey, we want to keep Lake Okeechobee at this very high level moving into hurricane season, and you know what? If we have to poison a community out the St. Lucie or out the Caloosahatchee, so what? Who cares? We're going to do it anyways, as long as we get what we're looking for. That needs to come to an end, but we need to make sure that we do look at all of those pieces that need to be addressed in it. That's the big job that we're fighting at right now. Now, specifically, we've honed in on a series of schedules that eliminates discharges from Lake Okeechobee into the St. Lucie estuary, except under emergency circumstances, and we are fighting hard to make that happen. Now, if you're interested in learning more, you can read about what's happening with the Army Corps on the Army Corps of Engineers website at www.saj.usac.army.mil/LOSOM, LOSOM, and I'll be sure to keep you updated on this process as it moves forward. And with that, as always, it is an honor to represent you here in Washington. I hope to see you around the district this weekend. I hope that you all take care. I wish you all the best.